Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. You know, it's beginning of September. And back in June, right in the beginning of June, from Ray's Nursery, I purchased some sweet potato slips. The Beauregard variety, the red jersey, and some yams. And so right to the right side of me here, I have a few of my yams slips that I planted. And so I wanted to do an early season harvest on some of these potatoes and see how they're doing. So thanks for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden. So generally, once you plant your potato slips, it takes about 3 to 4 months for them to come to maturity. You know, one way of telling whether they're ready for harvest is, you know, the leaves start turning a little bit yellow. Or even before your first frost date, you know, like Pennsylvania, I live in Pennsylvania, zone 6. And so our frost date is like, first frost is like middle to end of October. And so you can harvest them after the first frost, but you have to be careful that they don't do any damage to your sweet potatoes. And so what I'm going to do here on my big harvest is probably wait about 2 weeks before the frost and then harvest them, because the longer you keep them in the ground, the larger they get, and also the more nutrient dense they become. But anyhow, I was excited to anyhow do a little earlier harvesting of some of these sweet potatoes just to see how they're doing. Plus, we just love sweet potatoes in our family. So let's take a look at some of these sweet potato slips that I grew here right to the right side of me in the garden here. So this section right here where Billy is laying, I had some extra sweet potato slips. And so I planted like, I think 3 or 4 along this edge, but behind me in that bed over there is where I grew most of my sweet potato slips in my 1 4-foot by 8-foot section. I think I planted about 16 of those in that bed. And then you can just see how far and wide these vines grow. Also behind me I have some that I grew. Let's take a look at those. And so in this section here, in that 4-foot by 8-foot section, I grew some red jersey variety and also the yams. But you can just see how they've really spread out over the garden. And so probably in another month I'm going to do my big harvest on those potatoes. But for now I just wanted to take a upfront peek at how these are doing. And so it was this area here that I thought I would at least harvest 1 or 2 potato slips and see how many I get. But you can see right there, you can see a sweet potato sticking out of the soil there. And so we're going to pull that plant out and maybe another one and see what the harvest is like. So anyhow, what I was doing, I was going through these vines trying to see where I originally planted the potato slip. And it looks like I have 4 slips that I planted here. And so I'm trying to pull back these vines, and you can see right here that there's a potato slip growing right there. And those potato slips, at least from Ray's, they cost me like 20 cents a piece. And you know, when I harvest regular white potatoes, I get anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds on the average from one of my seed potatoes. And so I'm really curious to see what I'm going to be producing here. And so I have my light duty garden fork that I'm going to just take and start a distance away, maybe 12 inches, and see how I'm going to get what I'm going to get here. Now there's a nice sized sweet potato right there. And I believe these were the Beauregard. I think I mentioned earlier about them being yams. But I think these are the Beauregard variety. And so I really had no idea what I was going to be digging up today here. But it looks like, you know, I got a decent amount here. And so it looks like, you know, maybe a couple pounds. Let me just dig over in this area here. So again, that's another reason why I'm going to let these be growing for another month, is because they'll get a little bit larger. But this will be fun to be able to take these into the kitchen and cook these up and see how they taste. So I went and got my garden pruners so I could prune these vines. They were pretty tough vines there. And so I thought what we would do is, let's wash these up and then we're going to weigh them and see how many pounds we have here. There's even a little tiny sweet potato right there. There's a few more starting to develop. And so let's go wash these and then we're going to weigh them. So I'm over here at my workstation alongside my one garden. And let's just wash these and then we're going to weigh them. But you can see how pretty they look. So let's weigh them and see how much weight we have here. So I want to go through here and pick these off the vine before I weigh them. But I'm guessing a couple pounds by the looks of things. Maybe 2 pounds. And so let's put this on the scale here and zero it out. Let's just put them all in there. And it looks like 2 pounds, 1 ounces. So there you go. My first harvest of my sweet potatoes from my garden. So anyhow, I thought it was fun today doing an early season harvesting on these Beauregard sweet potatoes. And let me encourage you to think about growing sweet potatoes in your garden. You know, the slips don't seem to be that expensive, and you know, you really do get a nice harvest from each slip. And so I'm looking forward to, like in another month, to do my main harvest on all my sweet potatoes. There's also a curing process for these sweet potatoes that I'll go through on the next video, but because I know, you know, the longer these cure, the more sweeter they become. And so I'm going to be baking these probably, and they're probably not as sweet as they could be, but I actually was tasting one of these right from the garden earlier, and they do have a nice flavor to them. So anyhow, I just want to thank you for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden harvesting these beautiful sweet potatoes. And if you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to leave them in the section below. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so you can receive future videos. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.